All right, lesson 4. We've done adding and subtracting to solve equations. Now we're going to do multiplication and division. So when solving an equation that you see multiplication or division happening to your variable, we're going to do the same thing and undo it the same way we would have done addition and subtraction. We're going to do the inverse operation or opposite in order to undo it. So just like there were for addition and subtraction, we have multiplication and division properties of equality, which essentially say the same exact thing. If you are going to multiply the same thing to both sides of the equation, then it will remain equal. So whatever you do to one side, you have to always do to the other side to keep it equal, whether that's adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So same with the division property of equality, dividing each side of an equation by the same number produces an equivalent equation. Just a quick reminder though, we cannot divide by 0. You'll never see something being divided by 0 because we can't do that. It's called undefined. We'll get into that later this year, but just know that you cannot divide anything by 0. Again, multiplication and division are inverse operations. Think about, what does that word inverse mean again? Opposite. So let's solve some equations together here. So just like with adding and subtracting, you're going to solve your equation and then you're going to be able to check your solution to make sure you're correct. That's with every equation. You can always check your solution. Let's look at number 1. X over 3 equals negative 6. So when it looks like this, I say it looks like a fraction. That operation is division. A fraction, that line, is like a division sign. So X right now is being divided by 3. So how can we get rid of dividing by 3? Well, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to multiply by 3 on both sides. So I'm going to show times 3. So again, when we do that opposite operation, that cancels it out. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to multiply by 3 on the right. On the left, I'm just left with X. You can bring down your equal sign. And let's look on the right. Let's evaluate that. What is negative 6 times a positive 3? We know 6 times 3 is 18. And then a negative times a positive, different signs gives you a negative. Let's check if we are correct. Remember, to do a check, you replace your variable with your solution that you got. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 18 being divided by 3. We're trying to decide, does that equal negative 6? Well, let's do that. What is negative 18 divided by a positive 3? Different signs, it should be negative. And is 18 divided by 3 6? Yep, so I know I am correct. Let's try number 2. Remember, you're always finding and looking for where the variable is first. So y right now is next to that negative 4. When they're next to each other like that, that operation is multiplication at the moment. So right now, your variable is being multiplied by negative 4. How am I going to get rid of multiplying by negative 4? I'm going to divide by negative 4 on both sides. Now, something I want to show you. When we show division, you almost write it like we did or like you saw it in the first problem, like a fraction. So I'm going to show it. I'm going to divide by negative 4. Keep the sign with it. Right now it's being multiplied by negative 4. All you're changing is the operation. So we'll divide by negative 4. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to divide 18 by negative 4. I can kind of set myself up, y equals, and now let's actually do that math. You can divide and show your long division off to the side on scrap paper. 18 should be in the box. -4 should be on the outside. So let's do this division. 4 can go into 18 4 times. That's 16. 18 minus 16 is 2. Add a decimal, add a 0. Bring your decimal up. 4 can go into 20 5 times. That is 20. So we got down to 0. So I get 4.5 or 4.5. Now, a negative and a positive being divided, different signs, that means my answer should be -4.5. So now, let's check our answer. Remember, to do a check, you plug it into the original problem. So I'm going to replace y with -4.5. So really, I'm doing -4 times a -4.5. You didn't need to put those parentheses. I just like to if it's a negative. So now maybe I'm going to stack them up so I can actually multiply them and see, will this give me a positive 18? Remember, when we multiply decimals, you don't have to line them up in any way. Just multiply, and then you're going to have to bring back in your decimal. So I have one number to the right, so I'm going to move it in one. So my answer is 18. Negative times a negative gives me a positive 18. That's what I wanted, so I know I'm correct. All right, let's keep moving along. We got plenty of examples here to keep practicing. Look at number 3. I have -a equals -24. Take a look at your variable. What's happening to it right now? This one's tricky because there's an invisible number there. What number is invisible that I've been telling you we don't always have to write, but it's really always there? Hopefully you're thinking a 1, and if you are absolutely correct. Now, it's -1a. When they're next to each other like that, what that really means is it's -1 times a. We just don't need that multiplication sign. They're just kind of sandwiched together. So right now our a is being multiplied by -1. So how do I get rid of multiplying by -1? I'm going to divide by -1 on each side. Remember, to show division, you almost want it to look like a fraction. So now a equals, and let's do this. What's a -24 divided by a -1? Negative divided by a negative should give us a positive. And a number, whenever it's divided by 1, it's always its self. So I get a positive 24. Check yourself. All you're doing is plugging it in for the variable. So -24, does that equal a -24? Are they equal to each other? Yeah, that was my check sign. We're good to go. We know we're right. That was easy. All right, number 4 is where it gets a little tricky. I have -4/5 b equals -8. This is the coefficient. It's right in front of b, or right next to it, right? Just like -4 was right in front of y. They're in front of each other. So the operation happening right now is multiplication. So to get rid of that, we're going to divide by -4/5. And let me just tell you, this is one way to do it. I'll show you a second method in a minute once we do it this way. So now we're going to divide the other side by -4/5. Remember, when you do the opposite on that same side, those cancel. We'll just be left with b. Now we have to actually do this. What this is showing, and it's kind of hard to see vertically, remember, is up and down. So I'm going to rewrite it horizontally. And I'm going to kind of use my space, whether you want to use up here or down here. Choose a spot. I'm going to choose down here for now. And rewrite it horizontally. And you can show it with your division sign because it's going to be easier, because we're dividing with fractions. Think about, how do we divide with fractions? Well, first I want to rewrite this as a fraction, which would be over 1. And then we're going to do keep, change, flip, KCF. Remember those rules from chapter 2. So keep negative 8 over 1, change it to multiplication, flip it to 5 over 4. And go ahead and evaluate that. Some of you like to cross simplify, which you can do here, and then multiply across. So 2 times 5 should give you 10 over 1, which really just equals 10. A negative times a negative should give you a positive 10. Let's check our solution. Actually, I should keep that there. Check your solution by plugging it in. Negative 4/5 times a positive 10. You're going to want to write it as a fraction so we can actually do this. And now let's see, will that give me a negative 8? Multiplying fractions, you can just multiply across the top and the bottom. Or some of you like to cross simplify. Negative 4 times a positive 2 gives us, in fact, a negative 8, which is what we're looking for, so I know I'm correct. Now guys, let me show you another way to do it, or kind of a trick in doing this. When we're dividing by a fraction, that is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So if I notice that this is being multiplied by 4/5 and I want to get rid of that, I can just multiply this side by the reciprocal 5 over 4. It's just multiplying by the fraction being flipped, and you would keep the sign, which would make all of this cancel, and you would still just be left with b like we want. But then over here, you get to multiply by a fraction, and then you don't have to do all that dividing like we did down here, keep, change, flip, because you already did that kind of keep, change, flip. Look, it looks just like it did here. We just saved ourselves a step. So now what you would do is you would just multiply across and get your answer. Or again, a lot of us like to cross simplify. 2 times 5 gives me 10 over 1, which equals 10. Negative times a negative gives me a positive. I still get the same solution no matter which way you do it. So just as a reminder or something to know is that dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, or if I multiply by the fraction getting flipped. Just kind of a shortcut. If that kind of confuses you, then go through the whole process. Get here, do your KCF. Either way works. All right, it is now your turn. And in the part 2 video, we will go over these 2 problems.